Okay. Let's see. We got a working microphone. We got a working video feed. I will double check some stuff as always in the beginning of the stream just to make sure we're in good shape. We are okay. All right. So, and then we will go from there. Looks like I am live. There we go. Good to go. We are live-a-doodles. Macaroni. Okay. All right. So I will wait. We got some people joining. So I have a couple things here for us. So obviously we just released a new versions of ZBrush this week. I see there's a couple of you in here right now. Say hello. Thanks for joining. Do you have any questions while I'm going to rearrange some stuff here for me just to get me to be a little more comfy in here. All right. I'm thinking that I'm going to do a combination of things. Let's make sure, can you guys let me know and make sure my audio is good? Because I see it as fine. I see it as bouncing aroonies and doing good. And it should be my good microphone. So I just need you guys to double verify for me. Hold on. And you get an extreme close-up of my head there. Okay. There we go. I needed just to rearrange some stuff here for real quick. There we go. All right. Hi. How are things? Okay. So, thank you for letting me know that we have a working audio. All right. And let me put this out of the way. We don't need this. Don't need that. Don't need that. Don't need that. Hold on. Just going to... My chat is disappearing on me, so I'm just going to put it somewhere so it's docked nicely. There we go. There. Okay. So, let's get rocking and rolling. I was thinking about just continuing some X-Wing, but if you guys have questions, also specifically you have stuff about anything that was new that was released this week, if you want me to switch to some iPad stuff as well, I'm happy to do that, to answer any of those questions. But I really just wanted to also just start continuing working on this guy, keep bringing these details forward for me, and constantly keep working on that. So I left off last time on the back side here, the wing. I'd like to make something here on this part of the wing right in here. So some kind of greeble item in there is kind of what I want to put there. So I'm just going to switch to a cylinder real quick. Boom. Okay. Polyframe. This is definitely also where I would 100% use ZModeler. So I'm going to open up my initialized in here. Okay. And make sure. Wait, let me just double check and make sure this isn't my OBS causing this problem. Okay. Just making sure you guys see my whole UI. Okay. There we go. I don't need all those divisions. That's good enough for me. I'm going to align along the X because I'm going to pick it up that way. And I'm going to say this is probably good enough. I'm going to make a poly mesh. And then let's start looking at this with ZModeler. So I'm going to make something a little bit more tube-like. Something more like this. Okay. Let's go and switch to ZModeler. And let's just start, I'm going to save this as a preset now that we have presets. So I'm going to say insert, and then single edge. Whoops, single edge. Start saving out these presets so I can use these. I'm going to make an edge loop there, edge loop there. Okay. Then in fact, let's even get a little more, let's get a little more precise here. Why not? Let's do a mirror and weld in there, and then now we can turn on symmetry, right? And then that way I could be symmetrical on either side there. Okay, I'm going to take a look at my reference real quick, see what we got going on. Alrighty. Okay. So I'm going to now switch to the gizmo, and I'm going to do, let's do an insert here, because I want to have symmetrical double looping kind of thing happen here. So these are just deformers that we have available to us. So I'm going to go with, we got multiple slice, let's do a single slice. All right, I want that to be symmetrical. And so now that I get this on either side, okay, and now I've got those edge loops there. Yeah, I'm going to keep it creased, so we'll keep it creased. And then let's add maybe something like that. Okay, there. I don't need this now. Let's do a Q mesh. This time I'm going to do a Q mesh. I'm going to do a poly loop. I want to save this now because I'm using this all the time. Q mesh. And let's do poly loop. Okay, that way I got that. I'm going to hit save. We got that now as a preset. So when I do something like that, quick there, and tap to do it again right there. I'm going to make this be a little bit wider here on this side. And let's go ahead and do something like this. Okay, and then on this side, let's do a smaller. And in fact, let's go, we'll keep it like that. I think I'm okay with that. I'm okay with that. I am working on an X-wing is what I'm working on. So I am working on this. This is what I am working on. But I'm game for anything. If you guys got any suggestions or things that you would like to see, I'm for it. In fact, here, let's do this. Let's do a quick screen grab of that. Okay, and let's actually bring it in as a texture. Why not? Let's import that as a texture in here. Just so you guys actually, you're making a good point. Let's bring in what I'm doing, and then we have it always there. Why not? Okay. Let me switch to a different brush. Let me add it into Spotlight. Now we got double X-winging. We will make the opacity to 100%, and then we can put it up here. And that way, everyone knows what we're working on. I'll turn off the samples for projection of Spotlight, so it's just using it more as a reference tool, kind of like a pure ref in essence, like you got things all over the place. So I do this often, but I think at least now when I switch to something boring like this, you guys at least have an understanding of what I'm working on. Okay, let's do some beveling. I am a big beveler, so let's go back to ZModeler. All right, so I'm in my presets. Let's actually switch to bevel. Let's save this as a preset as well, because I tend to use this often. So we'll save that. Let's say you got some questions. How would you use ZModeler a jack-o'-lantern? That's a good question. I can show you something really quick that I would do, but this is something probably I would just do sculpturally. It'll be faster, Peter, to do it that way. So I can show you that really quick. I'm doing something inspired by it recently. Something from Warframe inspired. Scan combination like that. I also want to... Okay, hold on. So I can show the jack-o'-lantern. Something from Warframe. I'm not familiar with Warframe. I'll have to look it up. The audio is really low for you guys. Here, let me like right now on my system in my OBS, it is jumping for joy. So I don't have, and my gain's up all the way. So it might have been I was just being really quiet then, probably. Let me know if that is better. So let me just add my beveling that I want here really quick, and then we'll move on to your guys' questions that you're asking for sure. Let me just get this one done, and then we'll move on to that. Okay, I want to look at this smooth, so I'm going to turn on my dynamics. I'm going to just say always yes. I always want to use dynamics. I'm going to go ahead and increase by PG, by polygroups. We got that. That's looking good. Then I always like to drop my crease level down and my dynamics to 4, because that's normally what I would do. All right, and then I'm going to say over here, I don't like what's happening there. This is why I do this. So I would say we need to now insert single edge loop. There is that new preset feature coming in benefit for me. And then there you go. That's what I'm looking for. Something like that. So I'm going to now pick this up, okay? Because I want to turn this into an insert mesh brush. So there's multiple ways to do it. I'm just going to use this create insert mesh brush. I'm going to say new, okay? I'm going to want to draw it out on this wing. So the wings right here, I want to draw it out right here. Okay, and what I want is I don't want it like that, okay? It's where it's sitting, because again, my goal is I'm going to 3D print this out, okay? So what I want is I want this to sit kind of in the surface a little bit. So in my old handy dandy brush modifiers, sorry, not modifiers, depth. So you can see my embed is setting to 21 right now. I'm going to say let's make that be 0 to start. That's probably going to be what I want. And then there. So I want something to sit inside more like that. Okay, so the one thing here is when I'm drawing out, because I have solo mode on, it keeps making the wing disappear. So I want to draw on the wing. So what I'm going to do is switch to V2. Okay, and then now I can see everything in here. And I can say I want to turn everything off now but the wing. And if I go back to V1, I get all my X-wing back. I go back to V2, then it's just the wing. And then when I draw this out, you can see it doesn't disappear. And I'm going to go a lot bigger. I'm going to say right around in there. And now let me just move it down. And I want something like that. Right? And then now that is part of that wing. And then it's sitting inside the surface for 3D printing, right? So I got a less overlapping in here, so it shouldn't cause a huge problem for me for printing wise. And that's kind of like just some kind of little element I want there. You know, for giggles, what does it look like if we did another one? Something like this. Like, I like the one. I think the one works for me. Alright, and then maybe play with that a little bit. Let me see if I'll bring it out a little bit more. Okay, looks good. And now I can go back to V1. And there we go. Done. Alright, let me just save next before we move on to the questions that you guys were asking. So I'm going to do a save next. Okay, that's saved. Okay. Oh, Maria, thanks for joining from the stream. I did put speaker on. Okay, so yeah, very low. Is it still very low? Because I've got this cranked in the system. My audio is turned up all the way. Microphone's right by me, so it shouldn't be a problem. I don't know why it would be a problem. I have everything turned up on this. There shouldn't be really low. Is it still really, really, really low? Just let me know. And then I'll see if I can make some adjustments. Okay, so let me do the jack-o'-lantern thing first. All right, so if you grab a sphere, obviously here, this is a quick way. So let me show you just sculpturally. You could go about this because it could be very fast to do it this way. So I'm just going to stick with this. We'll just stick with that. Okay, we'll make this a poly mesh. And then I'm actually going to turn this into a Dynamesh. All right, so let's look at for Dynamesh here. I'll make that a Dynamesh. Okay, I would say I would use clay buildup. I would use this brush. Okay, and then what I'm going to do is in the transform, I'm going to turn on symmetry along the Y, and I'm going to turn radial on. And then you can adjust these radial, right? So now I've got 10 brush strokes, right? So if I'm doing a jack-o'-lantern, I can just quickly sculpt this stuff up, right? To get that, start getting that shape that I want for a jack-o'-lantern, right? And then I can, this is all working for me like this, and then I can smooth this out, right? So just sculpturally, there is ways to kind of just make this happen relatively quick, especially when you start using something like a radial symmetry. So this is a way you could start going about it, right? And then now I can throw some Damien Standard in there, and then just, you know, kind of accent this even more, right? So as you can see, you can start going pretty fast and getting something like this, okay, with it. So I would say, boop, 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 boop. Let's go all the way back before we were a Dynamesh. Okay, so what you could probably look at is look at the spans of this. If you're trying to do this, say, with a ZModeler approach, right? So what I would probably do is I would go, let's go to initialize and say, you know, these spans right here. Like, I don't really need these many spans. Like, I would probably knock this way down to, like, here, I'm going to go to 16, and then maybe by 16 here. So I just get smaller iterations of this, okay? Then I would say, let's just as an example, let's make that a polymesh. Then I'm going to say, let's make this top part here its own polygroup. So Control W, visibility. And let's do the same on the bottom here. Control W. Okay, and kind of setting myself up for things that I'm going to want to do in here, okay? And then let's switch back to ZModeler. Right, and then this is where you could, if you did the math right, you could use radial. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to kind of do like every 2. Now this polygroup, this other polygroup, right? So doing something like that, and then every 2 again. Obviously radial would have been a lot better, but now I'm just in the thick of things, and I prefer this method for myself. All right, so boom, 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 boom. Boom, boom, boom. Okay, and then I would probably look at this and say, let's do an inset. Okay, so I'm going to go to Polygon Actions. I'm going to do inset. I'm going to do a polygroup all. You know, I do use this quite a bit. Let's use advantage of the new ability to make presets. So I'm going to do inset, PG for polygroup all. Just, I like to keep it short if I can. And then I'm going to say, let's do one here. I'll make new polygroup there. And then let's tap and then get that. And then now I would say I need a Q mesh. Okay, so you can see I have Q mesh polygroup. I'm going to start moving this, actually moving up. Let's put the Q meshes together. So now what I want, what I'm missing is a Q mesh polygroup all as well. So let's add that. So Q mesh. Polygroup, well, let's just do the PG all. Let's keep that consistent for me. And then now, see, now I have that. Let's move this one up. I'll move it up again. So now I got all my Q meshes there in the same location. I'm going to move down because I tend to use Q mesh a lot. So I'm going to select these. I'm going to move this down. The select poly loop. Okay, then I want Q mesh polygroup all, like do something like this, and then do the same thing here. And this is how you could start making more something that is clean topology, and then now you can start sculpting on that. So this would be the base for that jack-o'-lantern question, and then putting the expressions in, you would either sculpturally just do it, or you could use live booleans as well. So Peter, let me know if that helps. I'm going to move on to the next question. Maria, you were talking about the where did it go? Warframe inspired. Can you share more when you mean by Warframe? I'm not familiar with that. If you can share more with that with me. How can I scan combination like that? I also want to went in to be convenient. What do you, Violet, can you share more of what you're asking? How can, the question you asked, how can I scan combination like that? I'm not sure what you mean. Can you share a little bit more? Because you also bring it up, I also want it when it's convenient as in Maya. Can you share a little bit more about that? What you mean by scan combination? Audio low, audio low. It sounds like the audio's back. Okay. Let's see. Are there any ways to which to move objects accurately? iCAD like. So accurately. So I'm assuming what you mean by you want exact dimensions and things like that. There's really not that. ZBrush isn't built to be in a CAD world per se, right? A CAD program is built for manufacturing, things like that. So they're definitely using mathematical stuff and obviously exact measurements and things like that, knowing exactly you're moving 2 millimeters, 2 inches. Obviously you'll have this in other 3D programs as well, but when ZBrush was created, that's not what it was also created for. So, but there is only one thing that you can do when you're holding these arrows. If you hold the shift key, you can move by like, you know, obviously exact. So I can go to -1 space. Then if I wanted to be in -2 space, you can see I can snap it to that by holding the shift key. You have that ability. That's really it as far as moving accuracy objects. I'm assuming Magic Dog, that's what you were referring to. If not, if you want to expand upon your question too, and I can make sure that's getting answered for you too. Thanks, Comics Legend, that you're happy to have me back. I'm happy to be back again too. It's a lot of fun to be here with you guys and make sure I'm getting questions answered for you, right? So that is crucial for me, right? And then, you know, so now I'm not going to stop. So, you know, this is, I'm going to do stuff like this, do a little blur, maybe in here, do a little inflation to get a little bit more of a pumpkin look. And then obviously this is too perfect. And then for me, you know, we'd start looking at this and then jack-o'-lantern it up. Yes. Right? It's a little too perfect. It's too soccer ball-y. So I would definitely, in fact, this might be something that would be fun to do dynamics on. Just start kind of molding and shifting it around, right? So, you know, just grabbing even one of like the cloth hook brush and then just start moving it around a little bit, right? And then you'll get some kind of like folding naturally happening, right? You could do stuff like that too. Could be a way to make it more be a little bit more of a pumpkin-y shape than just a perfect like soccer ball shape thing. Okay, and then the polygrouping is important to me because then I can use polygrouping to continue cleaning things up, right? Just get a different look, get a different feel in there. Okay. Question from Magic Dog. Are there any ways in which to move? Okay, I got it accurately. I got that one. How can I line the outer line of topology, for example? Oh, it moved on me. A belt. When I move, it's manual. It's all wobbly. Okay, how can I line the outer line of topology, for example, a belt? So clay sculpting, for example, when I mask out a belt on the body and extract it, it's not the same size in wideness all around the waist. It's wobbly and uneven. Okay, well, when you're doing an extraction, okay, so let's grab a model. Let's grab this model, okay? He's got some layers on it, so I'm just going to delete them. All right, so when you're doing the extraction, let's say you're putting a belt, right? You're doing something like this, okay? So this has only got so much topology right now, right? So this is what it really looks like. So obviously the first thing would be, let's do this, okay? And then obviously if you're doing this and now you got an extraction, what it's doing is it's using the topology that you have, okay? So when I go and do the extraction, let's do an extract, okay? And then I accept this belt, sorry, I selected this belt, right, is what I get, but what it's based upon, okay, if we solo this out, it's based upon the topology that I masked off, right? So it's giving me that, and then it's inflating outward, right? So you can see it's a little wonky, and I'm assuming this is what you're bringing up, is kind of some wonkiness in there that you have. So for me, this is where then you're going to start looking at, for this one, in this example, I would say let's polish by groups, and then just start, making a nice polish in there. All right? And right now, it is taking on quite a bit of the underlining form of him perfectly, right? It's getting like that, which is fine. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to help clean this up a little bit more. And I'm going to do a ZRemesh on this. But I'm going to use keep groups. And I'm going to remesh this, right? So I can get lower topology in essence. I actually want less topology, not more topology here, is what I'm looking for. Okay, that's what's going to be really important. In fact, for this, it wouldn't even hurt to go this low. Okay, something like that. And the reason why I'm doing that is to this, if I come back here and I do this polish by groups, this is going to see polish a lot differently now. And I would probably not want these to be 2 polygroups. Probably want those to be 1 polygroup. So when I polish this, okay, and down here I don't want those to be 2 polygroups. Right, you can see now it's clean, right? It's starting to become nice and clean because of how low polygon it is, right? And then now this also makes it easier to manipulate. I can play with this. I can start looking at this in a different way, okay? And I can, again, polish this a lot. And then now you got this, and then there you go. Like there's a belt, right? That you can start using. However, what you might want to think about is say, we've got this character. I'm going to duplicate it on purpose because what I'm going to do is say, okay, let's make 1 polygroup. Let's also add a little element to this. Let's say no, I don't want to keep the subdivision levels. Okay, so now what I have is this. I have something that's almost 1,000,000 polygons, and we want to create a belt. Okay? So what I might want to do is let's create some topology to kind of make this a little bit easier for me, okay? So I'm going to go and say let's use slicing in here. So I'm holding down Control and Alt, slice curve. I'm going to say, okay, I want the belt to be there and then to, let's say, there, okay? And really the only thing I care about this guy now is this section in here. So I'm going to now say, let's get rid of some stuff. Let's use the nice curve to actually delete things because I really don't need everything anymore. I really just need this portion of the body, okay? Then let's go back to that handy dandy, let's ZRemesh this, okay? So I'm going to go back to ZRemesher. I'm going to say, let's keep the polygroups and let's go ahead, let's be symmetrical and let's remesh it. All right, now I've got something that's nice and low, and all I care about is the red one, right? And if you notice, we're going to be a lot cleaner right out the gate because I did that slicing by camera right there, right? So now it's nice and clean, and then now I can delete the hidden, and now I would use dynamic, and now I can just use thickness to add my thickness, so I can play with this. And then really now my belt is only 1 set of polygons, so it's got no thickness actually to it. So the benefit to that is I can start again manipulating this easier, right? So if I switch to just move, I can pull on this, I can smooth on this, right? And it's just a single plane that I'm smoothing on. And then you could still use this. You could still use this polish by groups if you wanted to, right? So you can just start polishing things in here, and it's going to do the same thing. Then I can just start manipulating, moving things around. So you could go this route if this is helpful. I forget who asked about the belt, okay? But hopefully that helps about the belt. All right. Okay, so that was clay sculpting. So let me know if that'll help. Okay, Peter, so you got back to me. Liskar, yes, you can do UDIM importing in the sense that the mesh will appreciate UDIM, but it'll stack the UDIMs. ZBrush does not yet have the ability to support UDIMs in the way that you do in other applications. This is one of the big ones that's on my list of things we're going to be looking into and seeing what we can do for you guys. So you can export UDIMs. We have a plugin, of course, that MME here will export everything as individual maps based upon the UDIMs. But when you're bringing in, ZBrush can only show one texture at a time and one displacement at a time on one single mesh. We do not have the ability to show multiple textures or maps on one subtool. So to answer your question, Lisgar Scott, no. But to add to that, on the list. So don't you worry. It's something we will be looking into and seeing what we can make happen. You guys, this is a request that's been there for a long time. And trust me, guys, what we're trying to do with the desktop especially is start looking at some of the features you guys are asking for years, and let's see what we can do and start bringing some of these forward for you all on top of some stuff that we're actually working on that you guys might not know about. Okay? Ortho cameras to ZBrush. Is there a way to export Maya's default ortho cameras to ZBrush? I was like, good to see you back, Dangle Jangles. Yes. If you do an FBX export and make sure the cameras are there, if you import an FBX, we will ask you if you want to bring cameras in. So when you go, you can do it two ways. You're going to do it through the plugin. So there's an FBX here, right, where you can import. And if you look at the options, see you got import cameras. All right, so you could do that, okay, in there. Or what you could do is same thing in here. If you're importing, and if you want to do an FBX, we're going to ask you these questions. Do you want to bring in the cameras? And then when you do that, when you bring in the cameras, we're going to store them where the camera is. So on the desktop side, you go into Draw, and at the very bottom, there's these stored cameras. So for example, let's store this one, store cam. Okay, it's got to be in perspective mode to do. So I'm going to say store cam. Let's just call this one front. Okay, and then I can say, let's call this one side. Let's go here and let's store cam, and we'll just call this side, just so we get a couple other ones. We can come in here, draw, store cam, top. So in essence, what's going to happen is the import FBX is going to put the cameras here, and then you can cycle through the cameras here. Okay, then you can also go here and actually select, and you guys can have up to 184 stored cameras. I want to say it's around, let's just say 180. It's around there. We did this specifically for photogrammetry, where everyone's trying to bring a lot of cameras in. Okay, so this is where you would bring that in, and you can even bring images in and have images stored in there. So this is how you could do that. You can just export your camera through an FBX in Maya and then bring it in, and then you would get your cameras here. And then of course you can put shortcuts here to cycle through these, right? I can make these be arrow keys or whatever I wanted to, and I can cycle through there. Okay? Sound good? Let me know if that answers that question. All right. Hey, fellow ZBrushers. Hey, Paul. Looking good. Thanks, Yuri. What's the best feature of ZBrush that has only come out in this past year? Okay, so it's a great question. There is a lot of really good stuff. I personally feel that obviously we have done in the last couple of years, but maybe you guys just haven't been able to see it or understand what we've done there. There's a couple really big ones for me that have been huge and very instrumental into things that I do and go. So I'll give you a couple. I'm going to start with one of the first ones in here. So let's just grab this guy. Right, so one of the big ones for me is as I'm sculpting, so let's go in here. We've always had this ability, right, symmetrically sculpt. The problem we've always had is that when we do something like, okay, well, what if we start rotating them off and doing stuff like this, right? Now I don't have symmetry. So what we've added recently is if you turn on local symmetry, and now there are two local symmetries. There's a dynamic and a non-dynamic. The dynamic is in essence saying, hey, dynamically you've been moving the model in space, and now you have symmetry. So this is a small, big, large thing, because now I was never able to do this before, where I can still stay symmetrical even if the model is off in a different part of space, it's been rotated, it's been moved around. So for me, this is a pretty big one because I don't have to worry about, oh no, I'm not sitting at the center of the world. The model's not perfectly centered at the world. I have this ability. So this one is quite an important one for me, I would say. So you can have that ability. Okay, well, I had him still masked. Yes, modern art. All right, so I'd say that is a really nice just addition for us to be able to sculpt that way, have that flexibility, have that freedom. All right, one other big one that is an important one for me is this is one of the ones that I really, honestly, I wanted. So let's go back to this pumpkin thing, actually. All right, and then let's say in this subtool, let's duplicate maybe another one. Let's duplicate another one, and let's even rotate it. Let's do something like that. Let's duplicate another one. Let's change the size of it. Let's duplicate another one, and then let's rotate this in a different direction. Change that size as well. Okay, so what we can do is take advantage of this. So let's say brush. Let's now work in a way. Let's do something like this. All right, so what we got is now these pumpkins everywhere, right? And so what I can do is say, hey, let's store this state in our undo history, right? So this is there, okay? And so now if I started saying, hey, I'm going to start sculpting something here, something there, okay, start putting some kind of shape in there, smooth it out, right? This is being done to this one mesh. But what I can tell ZBrush to do is, because I made a store state, I can tell it, hey, I've been doing some sculpting, and what I would like you to do is repeat what you've done from the point of the undo marker to now, and we can transfer polygroups, color, masking, sculpting, and we even can do replacements, okay? So I can hit apply to similar, and then you see it happens on all the rest of them, even though there's different sizes, they're different orientation, and whatever it might be. I'm not sure why my microphone would be so low. So is that still happening for you guys? Because that's interesting, because yeah, I see you guys still complaining about that. So is it still, let's see, because let me see. Hello, 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 hello. Something then maybe where it's not picking up my Yeti quite right. So let me move it even closer to me. Let me move it way down here. And then now, normally everyone telling me to quiet Paul. Quiet Paul. Okay, sounds good here. All right, so the idea here, guys, is this isn't just about sculpting. So like here, if I made another marker, let's just do a different one. Let's say I do Control W. That's a new polygroup. If I hit apply, see, it gets to all of them. They all have that polygroup as well. You could do the same thing if I did a mask, right? And then I hit apply and say, okay, you need different. So I would make, let's do on a marker. Okay, let's do a marker with no mask. Now I do a mask, hit apply, and see the mask goes to all of them. Like, to me, this is a big, 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 big deal, right? Because there's a lot of times where maybe I've done stuff, I've made items, and then I'm done, right? And then now I want to make some changes. So let's say, even for an example, let's grab something else here. Get on my other monitor where I can see things a little bit better. Let's say here, did I put it? I'm just looking for a particular model. Give me a second. Here we go. Let's load this bad guy. Okay, so here's like a Nautilus that I did, right? So if you look, there are little spheres everywhere, okay, on this. And we'll turn on polyframe, and then we'll go to one of these. Let's go to this one. All right, so these got these little spheres everywhere. Well, these little spheres all share the exact same topology. That's the key thing here. So again, we'll look at this just so you guys can see all these spheres. So I'm going to say, you know what? I don't want those to be spheres anymore. I'm going to say, let's grab an insert mesh brush. I'm going to grab this model kit one, and let's make it be something different here. Let's make it be some kind of screw. And I'm going to say M just so I can see things even faster here. Hitting the M key. Let's use one of these, like either that one, or that one. Let's use this one. All right. And so what I'm going to tell ZBrush to do is, hey, let's take a look at this. Let's go and say, let's use the gizmo. All right. And then I'm going to just unmask and I'm going to center this. Okay. So the gizmo is just right here. Okay. That blue arrow is super important to us. Right. That blue arrow is in essence the up view looking at this insert mesh brush. So all of these are looking at forward Z. So that's what this is. This is our forward Z, right? So if you're centering this, I've got it centered. I would want this to kind of just make sure I'm looking here. So what you guys might not know, right, is if you hold Alt and just tap, I'm going to look down that vertex. So in essence, that blue is looking down that vertex point of that half circle, okay? And what I'm going to do now is, again, let's store an undo state, okay? And then now, because the gizmo is on, right, anything that I click up here, right, is replacing it, right? And then I can say I want it to be a lot smaller, something more in that world, okay? And then now this has been replaced, then I need to clear my mask and apply, and then they all get replaced, right? This is why I love this feature. And this is one of the newer features of ZBrush. And now I've got something completely different on that section. Like, this is a big one for me that I find myself using over and over and over and over again. So it's not just about transferring sculpting, painting, masking. This will also literally allow you to replace everything. Okay, so for me, this is another big, really important new feature that only has been developed very recently. All right, this is a new feature. It's only not even a year old, really. It's probably a year old, I would say. I think this came out, we put this one in the original 2025. So that's a new feature. I think one of the other really big ones too, there's been a bunch of really big ones, okay? Right, so I would say another one for me here. Let's load something else this time. Let's see if I still have him on here. Here, the glare is killing me right now. I got to put it in my other one. Let's see if I have him. Okay, here, 8. This will work. This will be great. This one's perfecto. I'm sure this is happening to you guys a lot. Let's bring back a really old model of mine. Okay, so I've got this gremlin, right? And you can see everything is one mesh. It's all one poly group. It's all there. Nothing's separated. And in this case, it's actually even one subtool. It's 8 million polygons, right? So this is pretty dense. And even if I walk down subdivision levels, I'm sitting around 29,000, which is pretty good. But what if you have scenarios that are a little different? I.e., what if I deleted these and now I'm stuck with 8 million? Or let's say, what even worst case scenario, what if it was a Dynamesh? So I'm going to say, hey, I want to kind of be in this same resolution. So I'm just going to click and drag and say, okay, let's go ahead and Dynamesh this now. And so it's going to look at the gremlin, and now he's a Dynamesh. So now he's 4.4 million. He's less polygons, but he's super, super dense. And now maybe I want to make some adjustments. I want to make some changes to him, right? And maybe these changes I want to make big, right? So if I switch to the move brush and I go, okay, I got to go pretty big brush size, and I start doing adjustments, this is okay. It's not bad. But now what if I want to do like some small adjustments, like this bicep in here? I got to go now with a smaller draw size. And now this is going to get a little bit more painful to do. Okay. Or what if I want to just start moving him around a little bit? Okay. I want to start moving the arms, moving the head, or moving the ears around a little bit. I'm now stuck in a corner. I've got a major problem. Well, not with proxy pose. So proxy pose is going to allow us to make a proxy mesh of this guy. Okay, so right now he is 7.6 million with no subdivision levels. Okay, so I'm going to say, what's my reduce amount? And so what you're going to want to look at is up here. Look up here. Look up here. I.e. this. Look up here. This top corner up here. You're going to look at that while I now go over here in this reduce slider. I say, let's reduce it. Okay, so I can click on this slider, and right now I want to reduce this down. Okay, so this is reducing it, and it's saying at 17% of the amount of polygons. So now I'm at like 869,000. You can see it's really maintaining some of the mesh, i.e. the scales, his teeth, everything like that. I actually don't want to do that, right? So what I'm going to do is this slider right here, this detail slider, I'm going to knock this down to 0. And then now I'm going to go, let's do a reduction now. And I really want just like around probably, I don't know, I want around 1%-ish, around in there, somewhere around there, right? So I'm going to reduce this to start getting in that range. I want as little as possible. And now I'm only sitting at 66,000 polygons. And now for me, I can switch to this, and I could even start doing things like, hey, let's start maybe posing it a little bit. Let's put a little in there. Let's move it to the elbow. Okay, and let's move it a little bit to where it should be for him to kind of pose. Then I can obviously do rotations of the arm a little bit. Rotate that out. Okay, then you can start looking at things like, well, what about the head, the legs, the body? Not only that, going back to, hey, let's make him have a little bit more going on with him. Okay, so I can say, hey, he's been getting into the cookie jar. Let's make him have some weight. Let's actually make that come out a lot more in there. Go along the normal. And you see, it's so low, our polygons, that it becomes pretty easy to start manipulating. Let's make the chest come out a little bit more. Gain a little bit more weight in there, right? Let's maybe put a little more weight in the legs. Change this form just a little bit. The thing is here, obviously, we're working on something that is really, really, really low. But if I unproxy pose it, we give you back all the details. And this is not a projection. We are literally giving you exactly my sculpt and all the details I worked on for hours. And I'm getting it back immediately. Like, to me, this is a major important feature. Like, this is a game-changing feature. Because what this opened up for us, if you guys think about normal pipelining that we're kind of doing, especially when we're dynameshing, we're retopologizing, then we're again sculpting, getting subdivision levels. I really think you need to sculpt the subdivision levels. To me, that's a must. But what proxy poses opens up is I am now never painting in a corner with baby dirty dancing. Oh, I've had the, okay. That I don't want to get painted in a corner. So this opens up almost every workflow. Man, think about scan data. You guys don't even have to remesh anymore. Bring in scan data, do a proxy pose, do your changes, do whatever you want, and then unproxy pose, you get all your scan data back. Like, this will work flawlessly. Yes, it will even work with layers. So you can store different poses in a layer and then do that. 100%. That will work. And in fact, you can create separate subtools. You can take this out and pose, because we've built things that allows you to go over and over and over again and try different things, right? So if we did here, let's bring them back to normal. Let's bring them back, bring them back, bring them back, back, bring them back. Undo, 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 undo. Okay, so from this workflow, okay? Let's say, okay, I'm going to proxy pose this. And then now I'm just going to say, and think about this as also other programs. I'm just going to duplicate a few of these. Just more than one, all right? We'll turn them off. All right, and then let's say, let's duplicate one more. And let's say, okay, this one, let's have an arm movement here like we were kind of doing. Let's blur that a little bit. In fact, let's use the new blurring algorithm there. Perfect. All right. And then I can even, while I'm doing this, by the way, while I'm doing this, okay, I can even do other parts of allowing this to say, hey, I can do this, like, sorry, do this, and then I can have this walk down the arm. If I take my finger off control key, we can have it walk. This is a new feature too. This is, I got a new masking that's way better than the old masking. And if I let go of control, we're actually moving the gizmo down to the middle of the gradient. So this is sitting right in the middle of the gradient. So when I'm moving this, this is way better of an accurate movement that I'm going to get now, because I allowed the gizmo to walk down the gradient of my mask, right? New feature again, new feature, okay? Then I'm gonna go, let's go to this one. Let's have this one be something else. let's go. Let's do something like here. Let's do a mask here. Let's do this. Let's blur this. And let's now do a masking by lasso. Okay, and we can be, let's go here and let's now mask off from here. Let's mask that off. Okay, and let's mask. I'm going to go a little extreme with these, just so why not, okay? Actually, let's do the opposite. Let's unmask the arms. Let's unmask those, okay? There we go. And then let's switch to the gizmo. Let's center that. Let's bring it right in there. And then let's do another pose. Maybe he's coming down a little bit. He's going to look down at me, right? Let's do this. Let's do something else. Let's do this time something maybe sculptural instead. Let's really make this completely change the form and shape. Like maybe he's been hitting the cookies again, right? This particular gremlin, he's maybe he's the more muscular gremlin. He's been working out. I don't know, right? So I can completely change a lot of the form in here, a lot of the shape that I want happening through here. Let's make a little bit more of a different chest, different back end. Okay, so if I come back in here, and now if I go to the proxy pose, you see this right here? Overwrite pose is now available to me. If I click on this, it's looking at all the other subtools. And so I can say, yeah, I want that one. No, I want that one. No, I want that one. Right? So if you think about this, you could export this proxy pose, take it in somewhere too where you can have anything assigned to it, bring it back in, have it as one of those subtools, and you can swap between those if you wanted to. And then you're happy with the one you got. Then I say, okay, give me now my mesh back. Right? And so now I've got that pose. So this can all be done to layers and everything, right? Now I got this. He's a heavier set gremlin now with all that. Okay, so this is just it's another one of those new features. Since this was a question that was asked, those that are just joining, someone was asking what some of the new features that they would want to know about. And I'm just kind of going through some of them for you. Because there's more than what people think there is. In all honesty, I see some comments and like it looks like we haven't done much in the last couple of years. We've done quite a bit. There are a lot of things for sure. Okay? And you can use proxy pose with transpose master. Yes. So what you would do is proxy pose the subtools, transpose master, do everything you want to do, and when you come back, just hit proxy pose off, and then you would get all your sculpt back. So yes. So in essence, what you're highlighting is, what if you have a model, you got some Dynamesh, you got some Sculptures Pro stuff, you got some subdivision level stuff. Now that doesn't matter anymore. That pipeline is available to us with proxy pose. So all the ones that are Sculptures Pro and Dynamesh, I'd proxy pose them. I'd go to transpose master, do my posing, send it back, and then I would unproxy pose. Right? So great thought that you're bringing up here. Fantastic idea. Flower power. Great to see you back. It's been so long. Okay. So let me get back up to where you guys were asking more questions in here. Okay. So listen, there's a bunch more stuff for sure that I can keep showing you. Maybe we'll go at it. Okay. I'm just going to go back up into the tops of the question. Outer line and topology, for example, a belt. Okay, did that one. Mask. Okay, UDIMing. If you can try Google Images of Warframe ships. Okay, let me do the Google Warframe ship thing so I can see what those are. I will Google it. Give me a second. Warframe. Okay. And you want, I think you said you're asking about the ships. Hold on, let me get back into here. Okay, ships. Let me see. Back into Google, Warframe ships. Okay. All right, so you're just asking how to make these? I mean, some of these are pretty perfect for ZBrush, in all honesty. They're well suited for ZBrush, actually. There's a lot of stuff we could do here, right? So, for example, here, let's save this one out. All right, save image as? Can I get it as? Okay, hold on. Let me just do it this way. All right. Let me save this screenshot. I'm just saving on an image for us to have that I can bring in so you guys can see what I'm looking at too and have an understanding here. Downloads is fine. Okay, let's bring that in. Import it. And I put it in my downloads. Okay, and boom. Okay, and let's add that in there. Size this down. Let's put this over here. Okay, so for example, a ship like this, right? It's really about start simple, right? Don't let the details overwhelm you. This is the biggest thing I think that people have a hard time with hard surface, is sometimes you get wrapped up in those details. Don't let the details overwhelm you, all right? Think very simplistic. Just try to get that general shape first, okay? So what's going to be the best shape to start here with this? Like for me, sphere is probably going to be one of the best shapes. I would start with this, okay? So then I would go, okay, let's go here. Let's grab a sphere. All right, in fact, I'm going to grab, instead of that sphere, let's grab this sphere. Okay, it's nice and smooth. Then I'm going to say, let's kill this. I'm going to start sketching this. So for me, that's the bell goes off, Dynamesh. I kind of want to keep it sketchy, so I'm going to drop my resolution and then just make it so it's not so dense. And in fact, it might even be worth going all the way down here to this level, right? I want to stay kind of free-flowing in here, okay? And so now, just in getting this general shape, I start looking at things and go, okay, I can obviously just switch to a gizmo, start doing this, okay? I can come over here and start obviously stretching like that. One thing that you guys could play with is the focal shift, the gizmo is set to -100. If you guys actually change it to a different value, it's now going to act more like a deformation, right? So this is now acting more like this. So I can start playing with this. And now this is more locally doing things for me. Okay, so now I can like pull this out, see? And if I keep pulling, you see it's kind of more of a local, right? So the more positive I go, the more local it is. When I go negative with this, see, it's just more something like that, right? And then I read Dynamesh. So for me, this is one thing you could start to do to shape this out and get this shape to where it is. I would also be a big fan of using my handy dandy lattice deforming, of course. And I would turn on symmetry for the right and left side. I would say I don't want any there. And I would say give me maybe 2 more there. And then now I can say, okay, this part here, or these points would be more like, I want this to come way out like that. Then I want this portion here to come way more forward. Okay, and then now I want this portion to kind of come more out like this. And now I'm just kind of masking. In essence, you start getting what I'm trying to go towards here, right? Then I come into this area and say, okay, there needs some volume change in here. So what's important for me are these right in there. So what I'm doing is I'm doing masking, right? So there's all these points. So this is all based upon, if I just grab a point, I get that. But if I mask out the points, you see they disappear. And then now the gizmo keeps readjusting to see what, in essence, what points are available to it. Okay, so what I'm doing is making things faster for me. And I'm saying the only points I care about are those 2. And I'm switching with the Alt key to this. And so now that allows me to do something, you see, like that. And get kind of like that form I would want. Okay, and then on the bottom, I probably want to do something with the bottom a little bit. So I'm going to say these points right in here. Let's have those. I'm going to look around and say, okay, let's add a little bit of volume down there as well. Okay, and then boom, Dynamesh, right? So this is starting to get me that shape. And now looking at this stuff, now I would probably switch to clay buildup. All right, and then now I start going, let's start building up this surface. Okay, so let's let's go through here. All right, let's start building that up. It's going to come through there. Smooth that out a little bit through there. Good, good, good. Okay, let me start really defining this a little bit more. That shape that I really want to make sure it has. Okay, here's a little sneaky peeky new feature too for you guys. See, look at it all coming together for us here. All right, so I'm going to say a little bit something like that. Okay, then I say let's switch to some Damien Standard. Let's really make sure that it's being a little bit more refined shape that I would want in there. Okay, something like this. Okay, so here's a new thing. I'm going to go all the way back to before I started making this shape. Control key that as well. And then now I'm going to come down here and I'm going to say let's go to polygroups and then let's group there. Right? And what that is, made a new polygroup based upon the vertex points that have changed from this point to this point. Right? If I open this, then I can get this. But what I also can do, which could be beneficial for me, is I'm going to go to masking instead. And I have the same thing here, mask change points. Okay? And then there are 2 points of this. There's an open circle and a closed circle. So you can see I'm getting a mask based upon the difference from there to here. Okay? And so what I want to do is I'm going to do closed circle and do mask change points. And it's a gradient now. So if you look, it's a gradient. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to say, you know what? Let's not dilute. Let's boost this a little bit. So I get something more like that. Okay, as an example. And you can still control W that if you want to. So it is, if I go backwards like this, okay, and do control W, you see this is making that portion in there. Okay? So obviously, you could also just say mask by pen, boom. Right? So when I'm doing this, my goal would be, hey, I want this to be masked out, right? Here is another new feature that I'm going to throw at you. So I'm just going to do an outline instead, like this, okay? So I got an outline. I'm going to go in masking, mask region, say auto region, boom, it's masked, right? Control W. So I'm building this off, right? And thinking about this. Why do I care about things like this? This is really important to me. I'm going to say, let's go back to polygroup. Let's do a mass similar. Let's do stray groups, okay? And so now you think about this, I'm kind of looking at this as a little bit in sections. So now I can really think about, why don't I just do masking also for this? So I'm going to turn on in my auto masking. I'm going to turn on this slider. And now I can say, okay, this portion for part of the wing, I want that to be in essence kind of another piece in here. And then say do something like this. All right, and then say control W. And then now what's cool is watch this. By me making these polygroups, I got other things like clay polish that can be looked at too. Right? And clay polish is looking at peaks and valleys. So what I'm going to do is say, let's smooth out some of this in here, right? So going back to deformation, we got this polish by groups. Right? So it's going to limit the peaks and valleying now a little bit, right? And so when I do a clay polish, right, it's going to really start, and what it's also doing is making a mask right there, right? If I flip it here, so what we'll do is let's up the res a little bit here. Let's go to 128 in here, and then Dynamesh that, so we just get more resolution. Then I can say, let's again polish by groups. Now I'm going to go a little bit stronger. And I start getting shapes like that, right? Coming in here. You guys could even, if I wanted to, with the smoothing brush, go to smooth brush modifiers. Whoops. We'll make it bigger and say, I'm going to change this to 9. And then I can, by hand, so if we go backwards, I can by hand just pick the areas that I want to be really, 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 really smooth. And this is a hard surface technique, for sure. Okay, and then the beauty of this is by making polygroup, it opens up other things for me to do stuff, right? So for me, especially for this, okay, in there, and then let's do this. Let's polish by groups. There we go. I got that, okay? I can then say, all right, let's also now do in edge loop, let's do a group loops. So now I've got nice clean topology in between there. Then for me, this is important, this is important. The rest can be masked off, right? And now I have this, and then I can come in deformation, and I can do like an inflation of that. Then I can do another little nice polish, right? And what I'm making here, I'll hide the mask. I'm trying to make, start making those ridges a little bit in there. Okay, and then now if I Damien standard this with Cura mask, I can do even with the Alt key, start doing that, and now let me really put that in there. Let me turn off, because this is on right now, my auto masking. Let's turn that off, and then now I can just push that in where I want that to be, nice along in there, right? And then now there's a peak there, and then I can just nice and peak this out, right? And then now I can put a peak in here, have this peeking through in there, have stuff like this starting to happen. And again, I would then also say, hey, what if I threw, again, some clay polish at that, some clay polish at that, and then clear the mask, clay polish, right? And then look what's happening, right? I'm creating these, and then I can smooth it out. So you can see it's really processes here, but this is just an idea of how I can start getting into that. And then I would, of course, be using my H polish brush to say, hey, I want this to be a little bit more flat through here. And because now I have those edges, it's going to appreciate that. So I'm sculpturally making this surface, and then I can say, oh, I want this to be pretty flat through there. I want it to be kind of flat through here, coming towards the front, right? And then now you sculpturally, I can mask this off as well, right? Start building upon this. So there you go. There is that question answered, hopefully. Maria, hopefully that answers that. My default ortho, got that. Turn off perspective, but ZBrush already has that built in. Yeah, so you can snap to orthographic. So going way back to that, if you're moving, you can hold the shift key to snap to orthographic if you want to as well. You could also use this to snap to orthographic views as well, and actually 3/4 views as well. You could use that too. Hold on. Now let's see. Okay, how can I make a button that encapsulates your life remesh for the weekend? I use a Friday life remesh for the weekend. Steamworks, I hear you, man. Get it going, it's the weekend. Buckle up, is what I say. Buckle it up. When you use cloth brush, does dynamics have to be turned on? Is it already built into the brush? It's built into the brush. So the dynamics is going to be all about the collisions. So if you want it colliding, the brushes that collide with stuff, then you want to turn dynamics on, Comics Legend, right? But if I just switch to any of these cloth brushes, they in essence have, cloth built into them. But if I have something that I want them to collide with, then that's where you need to turn on the dynamics. But the brushes themselves, right? Those like cloth fold, right? You can do stuff without actually turning dynamics on. That's pretty cool. Like, what happens if I do, like, that's pretty cool. You know what I'm seeing there is like, this is like a happy accident, right? I see like, this is like some kind of start of a character head for something. Like, that's pretty cool. I'm a liking it. I'm a liking it, right? And that those could be wrinkles in essence. Right? I went a little aggressive probably with the smooth brush. Probably not so aggressive, but that's pretty cool. I like that. Ooh, I like that right there too. All right, now I'm the tangent cape is on. I like that right there, like that. Yes. Yes, I'm a fan of that. Right? And then I would probably kind of sell this a little bit more on some of these to really hone in that this is kind of, in essence, this is a different surface, right, than this. This is maybe some kind of like metal surface that's here, and right, so I kind of want to sell that. And so then I would probably push these in a little bit in there, sort of sell that just enough. That makes it feel like it's going in there. Yes. Throw a little clay buildup on that. Right? And then this is a great example for maybe a mask would be good. Right? So that way when you want, say, something like this, and then now I really want to sell that this is, and here you can Control H, hide that mask, and then I'm building that ridge out for this character's face portion, and the mask is still there, and so now this will help me just really encompass as if those are definitely two different surfaces, right? Something like that. That's pretty cool. I love me some happy little accidents. Those are always great. Okay, that answers that question. I want to ask you how to have a smooth hard surface like the character armor. I usually mold the shape and then ZBrush it again to make the smooth and quiet and annoying all the curves. Violet, so let me know if what I showed you worked. Marco Plouffe is a great example. His workflow is a little bit where I was going on. Okay, retopoing. I use now ZModeler to do a lot of that. Okay. With the new presets in ZModeler, can you save and export them out to use another computer? No, not yet. Foo Stacker Wilson, not yet. On the list though. On the list. 100%. Definitely something we were playing with to get, and we will get it. It will be there for sure. 100%. It's not there yet. He's Get Started Chronicle Vehicles, episode 4 through 6 for Ortho on the real X-Wing model at kits in case you didn't know. Hey, Dangle Jingles, thanks. P.S. Get Star Wars Chronicles Vehicles, EP4 and 6 from Ortho's a real X-Wing model kits. Let me Google that. So let me see if I got that in there. Let me put that in Google or whatever you're using these days to search for things. Oh, very nice. Oh, I'll have to see then if Amazon has this. All right, there we go. I'm assuming you're referring to the one. I have the Force Awakens one. You're referring to the one that's silver. Hold on. Are you referring to this one? That one? Is that the one you're referring to? I'm assuming that's the one you're referring to. I do not have that one. I have a lot of other Star Wars books, but I don't have that one. Okay, I'm just catching up. Violet, you're talking the blood rapture. Extruding a cylinder. Can you extrude a direction along an axis instead of along the normals of the faces? Yes, Jags, you can. So cylinder extrusion. So you want to extrude along, like, you want to extrude along, let me reread this again. Direction along an axis instead of along the normals. Yes. Let's grab a cylinder. Okay, we got a cylinder. Let's put it back along the Z. Make this a polymesh. Okay, so Jags, I'm assuming you're referring to, let's just take ZModeler in context here, right? So I got QMesh. You know, I don't have a QMesh flat island yet. I use that one a lot. Flat island, let's add that. Let's add another QMesher here. For me, guys, this new presets, I'm saving myself time going through this. I've been working on a model on the iPad as well, which I'm happy to show you. I can hook it up. All right, so you're saying in essence this, right? That this is always going to go along the normals, right? So if I do this, it's just going to go along the normals, okay, through there, right? And you want to go now a different direction. So obviously you have 360 degrees with the gizmo. So you could use this gizmo to go any direction that you want. Okay, so what I would say is, for example, let's go now and say, let's do transpose polygroup all. Right? And then I'm going to say tap. What that does is all the yellow polygroups are now available to me. All the other ones are masked. And so now if I want to say this, and I can center it, and now I'm centered, and then I can say, holding the Alt key, I'm going to say I want to go 45 degrees that direction. And then now I can extrude in that direction. Then I can reset this, and then I can extrude this direction. Then I can do this direction and extrude that way. Is this what you were looking for? And I'd like to emphasize, if your mesh is also in space, like completely like this, and then now let's say your gizmo is like this, right? And now let's say I want to extrude along the yellow ones. I can then mask everything else but the yellow by holding the mask key and clicking on the vertex. That's going to go right along the normal. But what you can also do is you hold the Alt key, I can snap along this line, and now I'm even going this direction, and I can do multiple extrudes like that as well with the gizmo. So Jags, is this what you were looking for? Is this what you were asking? So, oh boy, I'm like way behind on you guys. So let me know. Okay, so proxy pose will work when you pose a character. Yes. How make random rotate IMM along a curve? You can be random along a curve, but you have to do it by hand. There's no slider, it's just going to randomly do it for you. So if here we go, brush curve. And this is really becoming like, did you know that for sure? Forget the X-Wing. We're doing did you know that's. I like it. All right, so let's do, I want IMM. And let's do, where are you, IMM? Curve. Let's grab this because it'll be more visually understood. And say you have this, okay? So randomly moving, you have to do it by hand. So I don't want when the cursor's red. I want when the cursor's blue. I'll probably make that bigger. I would click on this and then hold the control key. And what this is going to do is do that. And what ZBrush is looking at is looking at a setting for the curves. And so if I come here and do that same thing, you see there, it's doing that. If I come here, then it's doing this. So you see only a certain portion of it is doing. And if I go smaller, click, and then do that, see I'm getting this. What it's looking at is in your stroke palette, we have these bend starts and bend ends. Okay? So if I turn them both on, then it'll do just only based upon the brush size. Right? So if I go bigger, whoops. Again, you gotta click first on the curve and then do this. See, it's only doing these. If I click here and then control, it's doing these. If I turn one of these off, so now I got bend end, wherever I click, it's now only, see, it's bending from this point to the end of that part of the curve. It's not touching this part of the curve. Okay? So you can use these also. If I turn them both off, now it actually rotates everything. So in essence, you could have control based upon the bending. That's about all you can do to have random rotations. Okay? Hopefully that helps. I'm catching up with all your guys' questions. I often struggle sculpting around a model and getting the same strength, size, and depth at all points. For example, I would like to use Dame standard around surface perfectly. How can I achieve that? Oh, clay sculpt, that's an easy one. That is an easy. Let's go back to this creature thing that I'm making. You never know. Maybe this turns into something. Okay, so that's an easy one. So it's a great question. So Dame standard, let's select that. Boom. So obviously it's pressure sensitive. So when I change my pressure sensitivity, then the stroke's changing, right? That is what we want. We're a pressure sensitive application. I want to be like this, like just slowly make things and maybe make a nice little peak there, make a stronger peak there. Now maybe I want this peak to go strong, right? I'm using pressure sensitivity to change this up in essence, right? It's a great way for me to work. Now in your case, you want when I do this and do this and do this, and if I'm lighter, I want the same exact thing. So in essence, what you want to turn off is the pressure sensitivity to the Dame standard. And then you probably want to save this out as a different version of the brush. So if we go to the brush palette, the first thing you're going to want to look at is what is this brush looking at for pressure. So that's why we have a menu called tablet pressure. And this particular brush, it's old. Damien made this a long time ago and shared it with us, right? He's using the global settings, okay, which are in your preferences. Every single brush in ZBrush has pressure sensitivity. And when we did it, we wanted the brushes to have global settings. Okay, so in here, you have tablet, and then these are the settings. So you can see there's a size sensitivity, a Z intensity, color, lazy mouse. So if these are not all set to 1, then they are going to allow you to have different pressure sensitivity for when you're using this. This is a global setting. So for me, I wouldn't do it this way. Okay, if you change these sliders, this is a global setting. So anywhere where any of the brushes have this turned on in the brush palette for any of the brushes, if you go change that preference that I showed you, you're changing all the brushes. So what I would do is I'd make this more local to Damien's standard and save out a different version of the Dame standard. So what I do is I would turn this off, and then all of these, especially like this, I would reset this to be straight across. And then in the Z intensity, I'd set this to be straight across. So in essence, no matter how hard I press, the size and the Z intensity are identical, the same. Okay, obviously if you're painting with it, that's where RGB comes into play. So like if you wanted the brush stroke color, this would then be a brush that I'd save out. So even when I press lightly, hard, soft, as you can see, it is the same everywhere. And so even if I do Alt key, right? No matter, this is super, like I'm super soft right now. I'm super soft. Now I'm really hard. There is no height difference there at all. And there's no size difference. And so now I would save this out. And I would call this Dame Standard. Maybe I'd do Dame ST all or something like that. Just come up with a name that you could see it. And unfortunately, we have 12 character restriction right now in our icons. So there you go. That's how I would solve that. And so now this brush is always got, no matter when I press or how I press, it's the same. Boom. There you go. Problem solved. Okay? So if I wanted to make some kind of ridge on this, and I just wanted that ridge to be kind of the same, right? It's going to be the same no matter if I'm lighting up on my Cintiq or not up on my Cintiq. Okay, there you go. Okay, Daniel Felipe Gomez. I try to use the mesh project brush, for some reason didn't work. Do you know why? So I'm assuming you are referring to this brush. Okay, so it's got to start on the surface. So if I want to draw something in here, like say some kind of metal like portion in here, I want to draw something else in here like this, come like this, and I let go, then it does that. Right? So you can't start out here. You can start on and then come out, but then it's looking for something to project to, and there's nothing to project to. So for example, let's see, do we have, let's see, lazy mouse? Okay, lazy mouse is on. So for example, I want to do this, but then I want to go straight across, straight across, straight across here, 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 and then now there, and then let go. There. So that would be the reason. The other thing is, see if you have solo on, right? That's fine, but things like that, but there should be no reason. You got to start on the mesh though, Daniel. Maybe that's what was happening to you. So that's what I would double check. When it comes to the stepping, like maybe I want to larger step versus mesh on the curve versus. Okay, John, good to see you back, man. It's good to see some of you guys are back. We're back. We got to get more people in this stream because these are fun. Okay, hold on. John, I had a few bugs wondering if this is just me. My insert mesh along a curve wasn't working properly when it came to the stepping. Like maybe I want a larger distance versus mesh on the curve. This sounds like you might be talking about the restriction of it because we are using the draw size to do two things. A, the size of the mesh, and then controlling the density of the curve. So that is one. But if you can, John, share a little bit more, maybe I can answer for you in this stream. As I continue moving on, you guys are piling in the questions. I love it. Yeah, the shape and you can fill in the center. Yes, that one 3D artist. Yes, ZBrush does have a fill capability. It's one of the newer features. All right, so if I switch to here, masking pen, all right, and so the beauty of this is if you do stuff like this and say I want a shape that does that, then that, come across, then I want to go there to there to there, then I'm going to go, okay, now I want to go one piece there to there. Okay, so all those are regions now. So you can come in here into the masking. And all you have to do is here, mask region and autofill, and we fill it. Not only that, guys, you can do analyze it first. And I can say, I only want this one and this one to fill. And then I say fill region, and it only fills those, and it leaves that one alone. Right? You can even do stuff, if you get creative, guys, you can say, hey, what if I did a masking rectangle, and what if I made it had an alpha on it, and I did say something like this, and then I do another one, right, like this, then I hit this, you see it fills in those two, right? But if I go, let's go another step with this, let's using mask squared so that it's perfect. And let's say I do a perfect circle here, say there, and then do another one there at that size. Then I do another one maybe at that size, and then I do another one maybe, let's see, it's kind of getting pretty low. Yeah, that's not going to be enough. We need more topology to do what I want to do. And let's do that. And then say auto region. Look, it does it like a bullseye. It understood it. It understood fill this to this, skip this, then fill this to this. So there you go. Yes. But this is only in the new ZBrush. You have to have the newer ZBrush to do this. Right? So this is not available in 2022. Right? And then you can do stuff like this. Then I can say, let's deformation this. Let's polish this out. And now you got something like that per se. I don't know. I don't want that there, but there you go. So yes, ZBrush does have a fill region center for masking. New feature. Thank you for that question. I'm thinking of buying the newest version of it, sitting on 2020.8. Okay. Okay. Maybe this is helping because I'm showing stuff that you don't have in 2022. Like that. What I just showed, not in 2022. Version of the layer. Yes. Can you use this as transpose? Yes. That was when we talked about proxy pose. Already. Okay. Font to flicker on 4K monitors with a Mac. ZJust? No, I'm not familiar with that. Can you make a ticket for me so I can get that assigned to the person you're bringing up? There's a flickering of the text on 4K monitors. What version is this with, though? Because this was something that was old that I remember that we fixed. That there was something with text. It was more of a quality. This is old though. But if you can make a ticket, that'd be a great help. That way we can go back and forth with you instead of me sitting here trying to go back and forth with you in a stream. And right now I'm not on I don't use 4K. I don't like it being that tiny, so I'm using 2K. And changing it's not an option for me because we're streaming. But make a ticket for me on the Max on support. That way we can help. Is the split screen function has to have a square resolution for camera? No, it's just the split screen's only looking at the center of the world right now. It can't look, so when you move something over, you're going to lose it. So it's just whatever the mesh is that you're putting there, that's what's going in, right? So, boom. Let's just use the Nautilus. So when I go into split screen, right? So now this is using, so when I zoom in, right, it's just in essence replicating that. So now I can look at these, and then it's not showing that subtool over here and then, right? So I wouldn't say so much squared. It's just, it is reliant on, they're both lining up. Obviously what I want, what's on my list of features is, I want this to kind of be stored, like I want this to kind of look here, and then that stays like that, like, you know, you would in multiple screen applications, obviously. And then I can zoom in really close here, right? They're linked together. That's all. And then that's it. And then you can go different, obviously different views of split screen. Okay. I don't know if that helped you or not for the split screen question. Yes. So Painted Dragon. Yeah, the script's just missing. You can put the script in 2025.2 though. Okay, so your brackets, that's an easy fix. We know about it. We've already got it fixed. We'll be having a patch that'll have that fixed. But in the time being, the easy fix you can do yourself. Okay, so what you want to do is, even you can take this even from 2025.1.3 that you rolled back to. So I'm on a Mac, so I'm going to show you. Okay, so in here, and this would be the same thing in Windows. So you just want to be in the version number. You can even go back to 2024 if you wanted to. Okay, and then in ZData, ZPlug64. There's your, this is it. You need this script. And if you want the interactive light, that's this script. Okay? So this is the script that you want. So just copy that and put it in the exact same location as here's 2025. So for me, here I can put it in there, ZData, ZPlug64. There it is, right? And I'm in 2025.2. And then now I can use, see my brackets to change the draw size. I'm using my brackets on the keyboard. So tap, 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 tap. There you go. Problem solved. So you can solve it yourself. You don't have to wait for us. There you go. Yeah, I have some more things that I want to do with split screen, guys. I got a list of things I'd like to add to split screen. Bittersweet. This is some of the stuff you're saying is on my list. Again, I got to pick and choose here, right? I also want to get some new features in ZBrush, even more new features in ZBrush too. You do a frame mesh along two polygroups, then add an insert mesh like a bolt, but the step wasn't updating. Maybe it's me. Well, the stepping isn't going to update because the curve has to update. So you would have to update the curve first. So that's what I'm saying. That's the problem, is they're linked, John. So when you do that frame mesh, you're getting a certain density of curve, and just changing the slider doesn't change the stepping. You actually have to update the curve to update the stepping. So what you want to do isn't going to work. So maybe you want to use instead, don't use the curve mode, use the strokes instead. Okay? So you can now, this is also new. This is one of those, Lisa needs braces, Lisa needs braces, Lisa needs braces. Look up here, look up here, look up here, look up here. Moments, right? So when I select an insert mesh brush, let's grab this one. Let's grab this surface here. Okay, and let's just clone this. Sorry, there's a massive, okay, let's clone this. And then let's just keep only this, modify, delete hidden. All right, and say this, okay? If I now want to draw this out, right? You are doing, hey, let's take this one. And I want to do this, and then you're doing along a curve. Instead, you could do this, right? You can switch to dots. And now when you draw, it does that. So if I go different sizes, so now I'm not dependent on a curve for the size, right? My brush size, in essence, is the size. And the speed that I do this at is going to now play an effect, right? But I can control that speed. I can do things that will help me with that. So one thing I'm going to do is turn on lazy mouse. Okay, so I'm going to turn up some lazy radius here just a bit. The lazy stepping now, let's just put it at 1 for now. So now I got a lazy mouse, and I got this happening. So now I'm getting consistent through there, right? So what I'm going to do now is say, let's up the stepping. I'm going to go, let's go to 6. And then now, when I draw, you can see I'm going to get different steps of those. Okay, and then now I can draw these out. And every time I draw out, I get the same. And then what lazy mouse also gives you is the ability to go, I can go from there to there to there to there to there and then back. Right? So this could be an answer for you, John, because what you want to do is not possible really in ZBrush. But add it to the list. We need a graphic for that for the when I go add it to the list. But again, this is why I'm happy to do these streams again, right? So that way we can keep going. All right, let me go. I'm almost caught up with the other questions. Okay. Resolution. Kingdom Crafter for the Dynamesh. I don't know if we'll let it. We used to go up into the millions upon millions, and it started actually causing a lot of problems too. But maybe now with proxy pose, we solved that problem. So yeah, there is a possibility, Kingdom Crafter. You never know, to allow Dynamesh to have more resolution. Really, the important thing about Dynamesh is it's about quickness. It's about the beginning. So I guess my question would be, why do you need more resolution for Dynamesh? That would be my question. What is the main reason why you need more resolution? Why do you need like millions upon millions upon millions in Dynamesh mode? Because there might be something else maybe that I would say you should be doing, or maybe you want to do instead of using Dynamesh. And that would be what I would want to find out from you so I can really wrap my head around. The origin move, okay. So Jags, I see saying, imagine making a switch on a lightsaber. Okay, so I got your answer. I saw you coming back. Because don't forget, Jags, and everybody, don't forget. So like here, let's say, let's do a copy this way. Let's replace this even with a cylinder. Okay, so now I've got a cylinder. And let's say I do this 90 degrees. Let's do this. Let's make it a lot bigger. And then I say I want that to live there, smaller. Say something like that. Okay, and then let's split it. Split it on mask. Okay, guys, even the stuff we were talking about, I'm going back to Jags's question about extruding, not along the normal. Guys, you also have this, right? You've got the gizmo, and what do you have in there? You've got deformers, right? So there are deformers in here that I technically could use this deformer, right? So I could say, hey, you know what? Let me say, hey, what if I try this? Let's just try this. Let's say, this is where, guys, you want to experimenting, right? Let's say, okay, I got this, all right? And then I'm going to say, let's do something more like that. Let's do this. And then now let's say deformation, right? And then now let's move these points, only these ones here, right? And see, because I masked off, right? You can do this as well. But technically, if we came out of this, right, and clear the mask, there's nothing stopping me from going in the deformations and saying, this is, I don't even need necessarily to do a mask because I can just do this. Right? And then there's certain portions. Don't forget you have this. And what is this looking at? This is looking at, again, the gizmo. So if I come out and back in a gizmo, if I do this and then do the deformer, it's now aligned, see, based upon there. Okay, so now if I say, all right, let's take these, and then say that's where this is saying, and then boom, see, it goes that direction. So don't forget, you have that ability as well. It's not just about that. Every one of these deformers are looking at what? They're looking at the gizmo. And now, from this case, oh no, I've messed it up. I'm really not worried about stuff like that because I know I can say, you know what? I can align this, go boom, boom, and it's aligned. And then I can say, even let's use the extender, one of my favorites, and I would say not having it be symmetrical. And then I can extend there. But that blue dot is where it extends from. Boom. Right? So there's all of this at your disposal. So Jags, if you're still in, maybe that'll help. Reference a lot of original movies. It has the original. Yeah, and then I would put that on the floor grid. Dangle Jangles. You're talking about the one from the ILM vehicle models, ortho reference. A lot from the origin. If you can put a link in for the one, that'd be great. Any chance to get the option for more interactions? More iterations. Well, it's a polygon limit thing. Doug Bowman. So your question about micropolys, it's looking at the polygons. If you keep upping your dynamic, you got to remember in memory. Then we got to do all that, and then whatever polygon count the micropoly is, we got to do that. So you're probably reaching the limit. And right now, ZBrush has a limit of 100 million polygons. So depending on what you're trying to do, I would need to do it. You might want to do it in sections instead then. Is what you might want to do it in. But if you got something you can share with me, then I can take a look. Steve's. Is this Teeps? When you say Go Z, what Go Z are you referring to? Because we've done an update from a while ago with ZBrush from Mayo. I'm not familiar with Gabriel's plugin, so I don't know what it does that we're not doing Go Z for Maya in there. So let me put this in the Google as well. Let me put this in there. I'm not familiar of his plugin and what exactly is he doing that's different than what we're doing. So this is what I have to look at and see. I can take a look and see exactly what he's doing. But again, on the same token, I kind of don't want to take away Gabriel, right? He's selling it. So that's the thing too. Sometimes I got to think about this stuff. Is someone's trying to make money on this, right? And it might be something that's really good for him. So I got to think about sometimes things about that. Would anybody use to turn true pressure sensitivity off in the pencil? Sure, but if you turn it off in the pencil, that's a global setting. You're turning off sensibility pressure on the pencil, then you're turning off global. So you probably want to assign that to a hotkey if you're going to do that. Is there a macro or something to create curves based on Z-spheres? Yes. The desktop does. So in the stroke, there's this curves helper. So this will create, you can use Z-spheres and then it'll create a curve from the Z-spheres. So this is old. So this is, let me switch to move and move this into place, scale it down. And then switch to draw this out, move, draw this out, move, draw it out again, move, whoops. Let's move it out here, out there, out here. Let's say maybe this. Okay, so now you can come in here and say create curves, right? So you got to create a chain in memory, right? So you can copy Z-sphere chain. Okay, you can also, in this one, just so you guys know, there's also this where you can make all the Z-spheres the same size, right? So then they all can be the same size. It's looking at that. So this would be you copy chain, okay? And then you would stroke and say create curve. And then now this is creating a curve there. So if we turn this off, there's a curve based upon that. Is that what you're looking for the z-sphere question? Because then there's your curve based upon z-spheres. Who was that I was asking that? Mr. White. Okay. There's an invisible mass sometimes depending on the surface. It's Mike Black Studio. The strokes are camera plane dependent in essence. So when you are sculpting, right? So if I say if you're just doing normal sculpting, ZBrush is only what it can see, right? So if I'm doing this and then I start sculpting like this, it can't see this other side. It needs to see it to sculpt on it, right? And this, if you're just doing this, the only thing that'll change is like a radial or a symmetry where you're telling it to be symmetrical also on the other side. So, right, so in this case, right, if I'm looking at this, I'd probably want to turn on Y, then X, right? So that when I'm doing this, it's trying to see sculpt on this side as well. That's really all you can do. I'm assuming that's what you're asking about that for Mike Black Studio, if you're still here. Hello from Poland, Camille. So Z Mahler crashes for you in 2025.0.1. Well, obviously we just released this week. Have you tried 2025.2? Because obviously we've made changes. We've had now the presets and other things, and I have not been getting crashes. So so that question, I'd also want more information from you, from Camille. So the best thing would be to make a support ticket, because it might be a certain action that you're doing that we don't know about that's crashing. It could be a certain workflow you're doing that's causing the crash, possibly. So these are the kind of the questions we need to ask you a lot. We need to go back and forth. Maybe it's a certain model. Maybe it's a certain number of steps that you're doing. Maybe it's a certain feature set that you're moving one then to another into another. That could be possibly what's causing the problem that we need to narrow down and fix. So, but also 2025.2, I would download that and see if that works better for you. And then you got the new features. You got insert edge loop snapping now. You've got the new selection modes. The big one's presets. You got the presets now too. Okay, to make a ticket, since somebody's asking, you would have to go to our, hold on, I'm trying to type one hand right now. Okay. Support center. So you want to go into our support center. All right. And then you would need to use your login account information. And right in here is their support center. Okay. So this is the URL. Well, we don't need all, I did it through Google. We don't need all of this tracking stuff. You guys just need that URL. Okay. Command that. So I'm going to put it in chat right now. Maybe not. Come in. Copy it. Okay, it won't copy. Well, let me put it in chat. Paste. There we go. Okay, so there is that. So you want to be in here, and you have to go right here. Sign in to create a ticket. Where it says support requests, you got to come in here, and then it's going to send you into this, and then you're going to have to log in. Right? And then you can make a ticket. And it might have stuff that you can search for and might already have the answers for you. That's how you create a ticket. Okay? Hopefully that answers that question for you. All right. Back to the questions coming through. Hold on, I gotta find out where I was. Okay, I was at Camille. There we go. Okay, the ticket one. The color on my model doesn't match my my current color sometimes. Pure white shows grayish on a flat poly paint turned off. Coca-Cola, that could be because, is it this? So here, let me grab this. So for example, this has got subtools. If you put on flat color, the gray is the other subtools. Is that what you're referring to? Is this? Because it has built-in, obviously, shading. So in the preferences, you could technically turn that off. So in the edit, there's inactive subtool dimming. You can turn this up, right? And now there's no dimming. I don't know if that's what you are running into. Not sure. But if you want to let me know, we can go from that if you want. I don't know if that's what you're referring to or not. When I use split screen function and the models do not line up, is it a resolution? I'm not sure what you mean by it doesn't line up. Artist Future. Again, this is something where I need to see it, and then I might know what the problem is. Maria, yes, there is a way to rotate UVs. So if we, here, let's take this guy, and now UV Master, which now we have UV Master on the iPad, which is pretty exciting. Painting. All right, let's do control and protect. Let's just protect the front of that face, super important. And let's attract and go in here, good enough. And then let's unwrap and then let's flatten. So in the flattened state, you can, because now you can just use Gizmo because it's a mesh and now you can rotate it. And then you can mask things off. So if I do something like, here, let's unflatten this. Let's grab now Mr. Demo Soldier. All right, and I'm going to delete the subdivision levels. And then let's just only look at him. And let's do this. Okay, why am I using this? Then let's say, let's do a polygroup unwrap and unwrap. Okay, and then flatten. So then this is what you guys have. Right, so if you switch to your Gizmo, you guys can do this, right? Use the masking ability. You can change this. You can also scale it up and down, move it to where you want. Then I can take these and scale these down. So this is how you would do it. And then you would just unflatten. So you can do that, Maria. Hopefully that helps. Oh, how would I pose an accroché? 100% I would make sure every mesh has subdivision levels, and every subdivision level, i.e. level 1 is going to be the most important. I'd want the densities of that accroché to be relatively the same in there, okay? And I would make sure I'm polygrouping things off. So like every one of the bones that are really important to me, I would really look at how a body works, right? We can't, our bone, right, only doesn't just bend right here. It just does this, and then muscles are contracting, right, as you move. So I'd make sure the bones have their own polygroups, so I could put a gizmo there and then just move things. So number one, the most important thing is I'd make sure I'd be in subdivision levels. I'd make sure all that level 1 is relatively the same. And then I would make sure I'm polygrouped off, and then I would use Transpose Master. It would be pretty tedious to do, for sure. But you could also use groups, folders, and then just not even use Transpose Master and just use folders to do it. So like you're saying, this figure here, right? So all these bones right now, they're one subtool, right? And then trying to do this, again, you don't have contraction or retraction ability here. So that's going to be the problem, right? Is even though I can move all of this, this is all just going to bend weird to it, okay? So if I look at, so what I mean is the skeleton, I would make sure I would start to build something with polygroups in mind. So I would do something like this. And so in essence, this is right, an important portion to me. So that way I can do this, 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 right? And then do this. Let's not have symmetry. This, and then that's masked off, right? And then this is now going to be coming here, something like this. And then now you can pose the arm like this, and right? And then ball socket, I can have rotations as well. Right, so what this could open up, all right, is let's unsolo this. Okay, let's reset this, and then now, well, reset it, okay? And then now let's turn this on, and I say, okay, I want those subtools, okay, but I don't, well, see, this is where I need to split them off in different arms, it's fine. And then I also want those, definitely don't want that right now, and don't want that, don't want that, don't want that. Don't want that. Okay, let's say this. And then in essence, this, okay, I would definitely want those involved. Okay, those involved. I want that involved. Interesting. I have to take a look at that. All right, and then this. Not that, well, realistically, this does need to get involved, but. Okay, and then now, I can also say Control N, right? So I can say Control N and make this a new folder. So I can come over here and say new folder. Always yes. And I'll just say ARM for now. Okay, so now this is a folder. So at any time, I can be, okay, I can come back in here and say transpose set, and I get this whole thing again. And now this turns on that, and now when I move this, the muscles are moving like that. So you could go this route, would be the route you could go. Now it's a zombie. Okay, and then you could use that as a way to do it. But there's no, right, you need a muscling system to contract and right, you would need that. Use trim curve. So no, I'm not aware, Kevin Johnson. Just in case it crash, I'm on Windows and you're in 2025.1.3. So is it anything in particular that you're doing? Like, so like say if I grab this, right, and then I need not have subdivision level. So you say trim or do you mean knife? Which one? Right, so this is trim, curve, and let's see. So this is working fine for me. No crashes, and then obviously knife, but again, I'm not on Windows. But knife, you know, is also, you got to think about the topology and what it's doing. So making good topology is important. So this is something you're going to need to make a ticket as well, Kevin, because we're going to need to go back and forth with you. And then obviously what's important is it doing in the newest version 2025.2? Because you get that version as your subscription. You get it. Shay, that goes with ZBrush. I figured I do is proxy pose isn't going to work on Ryan Kingsley's because it's already too low. Proxy pose is about making something that's super dense. So if you want a proxy pose, you would want to go and remesh all Ryan's stuff first, like because everything's really low. There's not really much to it already is a proxy in essence. So you would want to go remesh all these, right? So you'd want to take the time and come in here and do a Z remesh and then let it remesh, right? So it's more dense like that. You would need to do this. And then I'm intrigued. Let's see. I want to see if this works, how well this works. I'm going to play it to last action. Say okay. It is doing it. There you go. So this is, I can click the Z remesher for one subtool. Then I click that button, and now ZBrush is going through, what is he, 81, I think, subtools, and remeshing each one at a time for you. So that's a way. Obviously, this isn't going to be instant because it's got to keep going down the list to each one and do a remesh. But then at least this is going to have cleaner topology and then not have that. And then now this is maybe where proxy pose would be worth it for you. But again, these are already separate subtools, right? I'm not going to wait till the end. Let me cancel this. Oh, wow, it's going faster. Maybe I'm not canceling this. Okay. It's actually trying to finish it all. We'll let it finish then. Finish him. Or in this case, finish her. There we go. There. There, most of these got remeshed, see? I canceled it at certain points. But that is why proxy pose is going to work, because proxy pose is about limiting, and it's already limited. So proxy pose is just going to not work that well. Remesh fast. Okay, so James, little child, any progress? Yeah, we've added some features for ZRemesh for 25. The biggest thing is for you, especially with scanned data, it's probably pretty dense. The first remesh will be slow, but now we're storing memory. So there's a retry. So for you to see the right one, I would probably just hit retry, not ZRemesh. That would speed up the process after the first one. With no polygroups, so I would probably just make polygroups by auto grouping it first. So I normally clean up data by getting the main region first, and then so like in essence, like say if we did here, let's do a merged version of this. The microphone's in the way, sorry. Merge visible. Okay, so the first thing I would do is, especially if you have no polygroups, I'd say, okay, well, let's just get a little section of this, and then just get this, and then there's a new polygroup, right? So then I'd say, let's get a little section, just even if it's one polygon, there, right? So this is just using visibility, and then I'm using Control-Shift-A to grow the whole visibility mesh, and then I can re-polygroup. Obviously, you can do an auto group. Okay, so why I wouldn't do that maybe right away I'd say there's a bunch of little bits and pieces. So like say, okay, this is all my important parts for the Scanda. Grow all, see I got it. Now I would do an auto group to this. It's in the way of the microphone. Then I'd flip it, and if these are little bits that are left, these are what I would want to delete. So then I have this, and I would do a delete hidden. So that'd be the first thing I would do. And then you can use polygrouping to ZRemesh. But if you had, again, unfortunately, this is another thing. I really need to see an example. Since your data, right, is going to be very tessellated from AI, and it's not really dense yet. And scan data is the opposite. It could be super dense and tessellated. So there are some tricks that you can do. All right, John. Okay, I see you're replying to when I answered a while ago. I did the rotation. Is there a way to preserve curves so they don't disappear when you click away? That's an option. Let's see. That is a built-in feature. So when you are doing a curve, you tap on the surface, it deletes the curve, so you can quickly draw another one. Did we put that in the preferences? Hold on, let me think. It's not in edit. Let me see if it's in draw. I don't remember if we made an option for this. Don't remember. No. No, I don't think we ever did. So, yeah, there's no way around. When you click on the surface is when it deletes. You can turn off the gizmo one. That is possible. So the gizmo 3D, tap to exit gizmo mode, that can be turned off. But not the curve mode. I'll have to see if we can add that as an option. We did not add that as an option. At least I can't remember it. For Dynamesh resolution for 3D printing prep large models. Why, Kevin, to your point, to your question, I don't use Dynamesh at all to prep for 3D printing. I use Live Boolean. Because what you see is what you get, and Live Boolean's way better than Dynamesh. Are you not using Live Boolean to prep the model? Because that's way better than Dynamesh. Like, I've stopped using Dynamesh since Live Booleans to prep all my 3D. I've got 3 3D printers right here around me. I never use Dynamesh at all. So that's still the old school way of working in Dynamesh. I would recommend not doing that anymore. And I would use, like in this case, right? If you look at this model, like you see how this is all one mesh, right? Dynamesh isn't going to do a really good job of this at all. But you know what will? Live Boolean. And it won't change anything. And I can, even though this is one mesh, I can say, look, I can say this is one mesh. I can come here and say right here, remesh by union. And even though it's one, boom, this is all welded. And any mesh that's overlapped, it's welded. And I don't lose any quality. And now it's welded and it's 3D printable. And then, so speaking to that, well, Camille, you're asking about retopology for after a Boolean, polygrouping. That's going to be your key. Don't try to make everything be one polygroup. Making sure you have polygroups, because then in ZRemesher, you can drive with the polygroup option, which is keep groups. That is a go-to for me when I'm trying to remesh with Booleans. And then I just find a higher density, and then I'm gonna project back in. Asking about, here's a ZBrush Central link. I don't see your ZBrush Central link. It didn't come through. Doug Bowman, it didn't come through, your ZBrush Central link. I don't know why. Maybe the chat's not letting you guys put links. I had to do a right-click copy and a right-click paste to get it to work for me in the chat. I couldn't do like the Control-C, Control-V. It wouldn't work for me. Apparently only mods can share the links. Okay, I didn't know that. Comics Legend. All right. So just message me on ZBrush Central if you want. It's just Pixo Paul. You can message me there. You can also just email me, and then you can send me the link. That's also a way. So this is my email. So you can do one or okay, just email, guys. It's impossible for me to keep up on emails anymore. It's super, super, super difficult for me to keep up on emails. Usually give me a couple weeks, in all honesty. I'm going to be traveling on this weekend for a show. I got another show in 2 weeks. I got another show a week after that. So I'm traveling a lot, so it's hard for me to keep up on emails. Love you. Thank you. I need to go. Well, Vipkin is probably gone. Current ZBrush Central feature requests or variations of tools allowed. When you are Valley, sometimes any tips for how to get around that? It makes it difficult to sculpt when there are valleys sometimes. Any tips? Well, it depends on the brush you're using, because it's analyzing the surface. And if there's a valley, the brush has to go down into that valley and work. But if you're using a layer brush, you can make it so it doesn't go down in that valley for sure. But it depends on the brush you're doing. Again, Mike Black Studio, that's another, I need to see what you're trying to do, and then I can direct you. Because there are things that you can do with the depth ability to control what the brush looks at. That's what this depth masking is. This is saying what should it look at and what shouldn't it look at. So there might be something there. But I would like to see an example of where you're running into an issue, and I might tell you, okay, there's nothing you can do there. Or I might say, oh, there is something you can do there. These tangents and inception tangent streams. We definitely need I need a tangent graphic. I got to do this. And that I need to find a way that you guys can give me a link. I'm gonna need to figure that out too, since the chat's not letting you guys put link in. That stinks. Okay, Dangle Jangles, thank you. I'm going to take a look. I'm okay with the book being in Japanese. I'm just looking at the images. I have a couple Japanese books that I absolutely love. I use all the time. Excited for the ZModeler update. I think that increase in functionality, dynamic subdivs, and micropoly, as I mentioned above, would work really well together. Yep, something to look into for sure, Doug. Yeah, ZModeler, we're going to keep adding. We've got other things that we're thinking about adding. Do you think you could share how to achieve the style of Tusoya in ZBrush Naruma? Let me look at that style. Unfortunately, I'm gonna have to get going soon too because I gotta go pick up my daughter at school. Okay. Yeah, there's people doing this already. Figured, yeah. This is being done a lot. I definitely could not do it like really fast and show you, but there's definitely these styles from him is doable. In fact, ZBrush is being used at Square Enix and being used to do these characters. So it's very popular actually in Japan. ZBrush is very popular in Japan for doing figures. I would say, you know what I'd recommend? I'd recommend watching my colleague, Daisuke, who's in Japan, and all of his streams he's using figures and he's doing stuff like this. So he actually streams the same day as me, but early in the morning my time. So I would recommend watching his. It's recorded. Daisuke would be who I would watch. He has that. Shiny Marco always uses snapshots. Yeah, a live update snapshot. Yeah, that's a great idea. It's a great idea. Yep. Yep. That'd be really good to implement for sure. Something to think about. That opens up other things in my mind now too. Yep. Coca-Cola, I'm trying to still for the thing. It shouldn't be grayscaled out. Have you tried rendering and then seeing? So I guess I need to put this in context what you're trying to do because there's probably something available that I need to know. Coca-Cola, I would need more context. Because what flat color is no material in essence. So you might want to actually make your own flat color material instead, right? So grab like a material like this and don't use flat material, right? Because that means no material, and just crank this all the way up. Turn off the diffuse, okay? And turn off the spec. This is flat. The only reason why there's this is because there's shadows on. So if you turn off the shadows, so if you come in here and go to render properties and turn off the shadows, this is all you're going to get. Nothing else. So there's no reason for anything to be gray unless your material's got gray in it, like the person, or you poly painted some gray. But this is probably maybe what I would recommend, and then save that out. But I would need it in more context of what you're trying to do. Mr. Patrick 4D joined us. Thanks, man, for jumping in. Artist Future, yeah. This is fixed in this version, so you want to get the new version. You're talking about the lights. When you start moving the lights and you add another light, I was having the same problem, but the new version I wasn't able to replicate it. So I would can you please try 2025.2 on your system and see if that helps out, and then if it doesn't, please make a ticket so that we can start narrowing down what could be causing the problem. All right? That would be a big help. I wish it came with my sound effects comics legend. You guys probably don't want that though, but it would be fun to have. You can turn it off. So Artist Future, if you could do that and let me know, that'd be great. Oh dang. Okay, Kevin Johnson. I've shown many streams of where I use 3D printing with just live Boolean, no more Dynameshing. This is why I'm not really in a rush to make necessarily a higher Dynamesh, because what's really the reason why anybody would want higher Dynamesh was always that, but now live Boolean's there, so you don't need that, and it's way better, and what you see is what you get. Yes, Project from History works way better than Project All. It's way better, because it's only looking at that history point, and that's it, so nothing else. ZBrush Summit, would we see some expansion on it? I was wondering if you can make it a randomized number and symbolize the surface. Yeah, I have to look at more in a micro poly in there. 1 second, guys. Give me 1 minute. All right. Sorry, guys. I'm going to have to get going. Thanks for. Can you spell the colleague? Okay, so Daisuke. Wait, Daisu. Now I'm making my mind. Daisuke. There you go. That's my colleague. Daisuke. Let me see. Let me get just a stream real quick for you guys. YouTube. In here. Let me get to the channel. Okay, let me see. I think this is him right here. Let me look. No, that's... Nope. Hold on, I'm just trying to find one from him. Of course I can't find one immediately. Why would that work for me? No, why would it? Okay, here we go. Here is a link to one of Daisuke's, and it's what you're looking for. Let me do this. There you go. There you go. I like to try and think. Recently, in exporting the low poly FMX from ZBrush, I do an export polygroups as mask for it. Should I do the same for high poly? If you're going to try and go make the map, like make actually your normal maps and everything else in another program, you're going to need the high polys as well, yeah. Okay. All right, guys. Unfortunately, I got to go. I got to head out. I got to pick up my daughter. Thank you for joining me. I don't remember if I'm streaming next Friday. I believe I am. Yes, I am. All right, so hopefully I see you next Friday. Tell your friends, tell your family, let everybody know. This has been Paul Gaboury with ZBrush.